For this build, I thought it would be fun to make a baby-size replica pair of the coolest sneakers ever made, Nike's Freddy Dunk SB. I started with this cheap pair of kids sneakers which have a beige midsole and a very similar panel shape. First, using a stitch remover, I get rid of the Velcro straps. Pulling off any loose threads. This left the edge of the inner lining loose, but I'll deal with that in a minute. I remove the other side of the strap, along with its threads, and then using a cigarette lighter, I singe any exposed bits of thread. We won't be needing these elastic laces. Using the lighter, I get rid of any more loose threads anywhere else on the sneakers. The loose flaps of the inner lining I stick down in place using a small drop of hot glue. Tuck the tongue inside to get it out of the way, then using some thin duct tape, I mask off the edge of the inner lining. Using a wide painter's masking tape, I cover the rest of the shoe. Pull out the insole so it doesn't get paint on it. Then using a beige paint, I give the inner lining 3 coats. When the paint's dry, remove all the masking tape. I masked up the labels on the front of the tongue and I gave them a couple of coats of beige paint as well. Now I'm going to mask up and paint the inside of the tongue the same colour as the lining. Using this acrylic paint, I gave the outside of the tongue a good coat of green. When that's dry, it's time to look at these flesh-coloured faux leather panels. For this I'm using some acrylic alcohol-activated makeup inks. I test the mix using isopropyl alcohol with the 2 lightest flesh colours and a little bit of green to knock back the pink colour. I used the Velcro straps that I took off to test the colours on until I was happy with the match. Then I mixed up a larger quantity of these 3 inks. To apply them, thin the inks down with isopropyl alcohol, and then just brush it straight onto the surface. I applied 2 coats to get an even cover. Using a satin clear coat, I give a light dusting to the inks to give them some durability. The swoosh on the Nike shoes is a slightly reflective silver colour, so for this I use a metallic chrome paint I spray a bit into the lid, and then using a brush I paint it onto this panel. The next step is the blood spatter pattern. For this I tested a lot of different paints trying to find something that wasn't too red. The closest I could find was this paint, which was quite a deep purple red. Again, spray a bit into the lid, and then using a very fine tip brush, I take one of the Velcro straps to do a bit of a test. I found that you have to apply quite a bit of paint each time to get the full depth of the red colour. When I was sure that I had the technique right, I started to apply the paint. I'm using my SBs as a template, but because the baby sneakers are a different size and shape, I'm only using the blood pattern as a guide. The other iconic part of these sneakers is the red and green knit fabric in the sides and the toe box. Because the baby sneakers are smaller, I wanted a fabric that had a fine knit texture to help with the scale. I found this necktie which was the perfect texture. The green's not quite the right shade, but I think it's still going to look the part. I started by deconstructing the tie until I had a flat piece of fabric that I can lay out. Using the wide masking tape, I put a piece over one of the sections and smooth it into all the creases. Then I cut it out with a scalpel to give myself an adhesive template. Apply this template to the fabric and then trim it out, leaving a small additional margin all the way around the template. Do a test fit, and then using a screwdriver blade, lift up the leather panels all the way around the edge of the panel that you're working on. Brush some contact adhesive into the toe box, and onto the rear of the fabric piece. Once it's no longer tacky, position the fabric into the toe box and press it into place. Using the small screwdriver blade, press the edges underneath the surrounding flap. For this side panel, the pattern of the fabric continues on either side of the silver stripe, so make one template, apply it to the fabric, and then cut it out so that the pattern will be continuous across the two pieces. These two panels were probably the most fiddly part of the entire build, but I eventually managed to wrestle them into place. Using a leather hole punch, I added one extra lace hole onto either side. For a bit of decoration on the tongue labels, I painted on a bleeding Freddy slash. I then masked off the bottom part of the sole and using a flat black paint, I gave the lower sole a couple of coats. This obviously won't last long if the shoes are being walked on, but for a baby, I think they'll last long enough. I added some beige laces, and now the sneakers are complete. In the video description, I've put a full list of links to all the materials that I used in this build. Let me know what you think of these sneakers in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, it would help me out a lot if you would like and subscribe to the channel so that I can keep bringing you more fun builds.